For this analytical report presentation, I will present information found on the factory farming industry, identify and explain the types of pollution it emits, and the negative health impacts the pollution has on Americans all over the country. Before we get started, I will tell you all some background on factory farming that I'm going to deliver my report in three major sections. First, I will give an analysis of my research methods and resources. Second, I will discuss my research results about factory farm animal waste and agricultural chemicals and how it affects human health. Lastly, I'm going to provide recommendations to combat factory farm pollution and the medical issues it causes. For the past 30 years, factory farming has replaced most family-operated farms and has significantly grown to take over the agriculture industry. With the evolution of new technology and scientific discoveries, agriculturists found ways to increase yield, decrease costs of production, and sustain. Their goal is to produce large amounts of livestock for a cheap price to keep up with the high demand for product and feed our continuously increasing human population. Unfortunately, it has been at the expense of our environment and has led to the suffering of many Americans and their health. The primary sources of factory farm pollution are animal waste and agricultural chemicals. These sources spread through land, water, and air and eventually end up ingested or consumed by the human population. In turn, it has led to foodborne illnesses and infections and other serious health problems such as cardiovascular, respiratory, and degenerative diseases and neurological damage. For my research, I use print, electronic, and empirical resources to gather credible information. I utilize the University of Minnesota online libraries to obtain scholarly print articles, the internet to access several newspaper and environmental organization websites, national research studies, and empirical reports. From these resources, I was able to find important facts, statistics, and examples, as well as charts and graphs to support the ideas presented in the text. In the Gantt chart I made, I assembled, formatted, and annotated my resources from February 18th to the 22nd, but continued to update and add to my resources throughout the process of creating my analytical report. To determine my resources' credibility, I evaluated each and felt most of my resources met the standard criteria I set out with and were valuable in addressing my topic issue. In order to make process in my analysis research, I stuck to my Gantt chart schedule with laid out task time frames and due dates that held me accountable throughout my research process and it kept me on track. Industrial farm operations contain thousands of animals in a small area, and they generate an enormous amount of manure. According to Warren Browning's article, the industry produces 500 million tons of waste each year, which is at least 3 times more than the volume of human waste. In the Cesspools of Shame report, it states waste produced by the livestock is collected and stored in open-air lagoons, which can be as big as 6 to 7.5 acres, containing 20 to 45 million gallons of wastewater. These large lagoons or cesspools dangerously impact water quality through surface runoff and erosion, direct discharges of waste spills, and poor weather conditions. Farmers use the untreated waste from these cesspools as fertilizer for crop fields that feed the livestock that humans consume. Because manure is overapplied on factory farms, excess waste infects surface and groundwater and emits dangerous gases. For U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's National Water Quality Inventory Report displays data from contamination assessments showing agriculture activities as the #1 source out of the top 10 sources of impaired rivers and streams, and pathogens, bacteria like fecal matter, as the top cause of impaired rivers and streams. Industrial operations routinely feed their livestock a wide range of antibiotics and hormones to promote faster growth and prevent the spread of disease. In Halden's Environmental Impact of Industrial Farm Animal Production report, it says animal farming is estimated to account for 37% of nationwide pesticide usage and 80% of all antibiotic usage in the U.S. Animal waste is liable for a vast array of medical issues. Fields and spray fields generate a huge amount of air pollution into the environment and into the lungs of countless human beings. The report, Putting Meat on the Table by John Carlin, included a U.S. greenhouse gas inventory, displaying the data on the types of greenhouse gases emitted and the massive quantities of each gas that are released into the atmosphere from different agricultural sources. Lagoon emissions can result in respiratory and neurological problems among residents living nearby and factory farm workers. Continuous exposure to these greenhouse gases can cause nausea, headaches, coughing, eye, nose, and throat irritation, seizures, and potentially death. Air pollutants have also contributed to brain damage, depression, and anxiety, as well as birth defects and premature death. Agricultural chemicals from livestock farms are also perpetrators of different illnesses and diseases found in the human population. These substances end up undigested in these animals' urine and manure, which eventually makes its way into people's immune systems. According to Centers for Disease Control, each year, roughly 1 in 6 Americans, or 48 million people, get sick, 128,000 are hospitalized, and 3,000 die from foodborne illnesses. Chemicals from industrial farms lead to pathogenic bacterial, viral, and parasitic diseases like E. coli, salmonella, and norovirus. These illnesses cause severe stomach pain, vomiting, fevers, and in serious cases, death. Factory farm methods are behind the development of antibiotic resistance in bacteria species as well. Antibiotics added to livestock feed to counteract their sicknesses and confinement persist, so as consumers of these animals, we directly ingest these antibiotics, and it makes human infections much more difficult to treat. From my research, we can conclude that factory farming pollution is detrimental to Americans' health, and we must take action. Our nation's environmental laws are outdated, and they remain largely exempt from emissions regulations. By adopting reflexive law policies, laws that require public disclosure of raw data, warnings, and labels, it would have a shaming effect on polluters while enabling consumers and businesses to disengage with polluting industries and support environmentally friendly companies. The New York Law Review article reveals our federal government has some of the least enforced and effective standards in terms of pollution, and state and local governments aren't too much better due to the lack of enforcement. By implementing stricter, more concise laws, the government can establish safer, healthier emission, pesticide, and antibiotic yields on livestock industrial operations. Moreover, the government needs to execute whistleblower investigations to police the industry, and violators need to be punished. As consumers of factory farm livestock, we can take it into our own hands to limit our purchases of their products and change our eating habits. Better educating ourselves on the products by doing research and asking questions will make us extra aware and cautious of what we are buying and whom we are buying from. We can also eat less meat and more plant-based diets. Putting aside a day or two to go meatless can make all the difference, and it's not impossible to do. As the world leader in meat consumption, by teaching ourselves to cut back on meat, we can ultimately alter the way the industry operates. As you can see, factory farming, pollution, and the medical effects it has on the human population is a huge problem in our society. I hope you all learned a great deal from my presentation and take into consideration what needs to be done to diminish this detrimental issue. Thank you very much.